Developed and published by multiple companies originally for the arcades and later ported for consoles, was Caveman Ninja Joe and Mark. The plot of the game had it that the player controlled the cavemen, being either that of Joe or Mark, that went through multiple prehistoric themed platforming levels using weapons also relating to the prehistory theme. The purpose of the game, and for Joe and Mark's adventures, were to rescue a group of women whom were kidnapped by an opposing tribe of cavemen. Despite the game having a simplistic story and gameplay, the dynamics of the game were solid and praised by critics as well as gamers. Joe and Mark were, as mentioned, ported to different consoles at the time, and some of these ports were rather decent, others were slightly average. However, it's now known that the definitive version of Joe and Mark that most gamers remember was the Super Nintendo version, which had the most respect from critics in terms of visual designs and appeal from gamers who had bought copies of the game to play at the time. There were other related sequels of Joe and Mark released on multiple consoles as well, but the original game, with the Super Nintendo adaptation in mind, was simple yet understandable, and the concept was remembered the best. But Joe and Mark soon became outdated relics of the gaming era, and eventually the premise that gamers and critics once enjoyed in terms of Joe and Mark as characters and as a gaming franchise later on seemed simplistic and crude. In 2009 were the first real attempts at a modernized reboot on revival of the franchise, as nothing came of it in terms of details or information, and the said project at the time was later cancelled. In 2021, French publisher Microids announced a reimagining of the franchise, with the title much as the original being that of Joe and Mark Caveman Ninja, which was later released for consoles on the personal computer in 2022. Sometimes a character can be forgotten because they were once very well known, but eventually forgotten when the premise became outdated, but later reimagined for a whole new generation of gamers.